In the early summer of 1912, the small town of Villisca, Iowa, looked like a picture torn from a postcard. Rows of modest wooden homes, white picket fences, and the low whistle of trains passing through. A place where everyone knew their neighbor, where gossip spread faster than the breeze that rustled through the cornfields. Life in Villisca moved slowly. Church on Sundays, small-town fairs, and children playing in the dirt roads until the street lamps flickered on. It was a community so ordinary, so safe, that the idea of violence felt impossible. But on the night of June 9, 1912, that illusion of safety shattered. Within one home, a cheerful white house on East 2nd Street, 8 people would meet a fate so brutal that it would haunt the town forever. That night, the Moore family was home after a long Sunday filled with church and community events. Josiah Moore, a respected businessman and devoted husband, had taken his wife Sarah and their 4 children to a Children's Day program at their local Presbyterian church. The Moores were well known in Villisca, kind, dependable, and active in the church. After the evening service, the family decided to invite 2 neighborhood girls, Lena and Ina Stillinger, to spend the night. It was an innocent gesture, the kind small towns are built on. No one could have imagined it would lead to tragedy. As the clock crept past 10 p.m., the family returned home. The oil lamps were lit, the doors locked. The children changed into their nightclothes, laughter echoing faintly down the hallway. Upstairs, Josiah and Sarah prepared for bed, tired but content after the long day. No one heard the footsteps outside. No one saw the figure slip silently into the house. When the sun rose the next morning, Villisca stirred to life as usual. The milkman made his rounds, neighbors tended to their gardens, and the rhythmic sound of roosters filled the air. But at the Moore house, nothing. No sound, no movement. Curtains still drawn tight. By 7 a.m., a neighbor named Mary Peckham began to worry. Sarah Moore was usually up early, hanging laundry or preparing breakfast. The silence was strange. She walked to the house and knocked. No answer. She tried the door. Locked. Even stranger. She called Josiah's brother Ross Moore, who had a spare key. Moments later, he arrived and stepped inside. What he found would change Villisca forever. Ross took a few hesitant steps into the quiet home. The air was heavy, still, thick. He called out Josiah's name. Nothing. He made his way to the guest room on the first floor, where the Stillinger girls had slept. What he saw made his blood run cold. He turned and ran out of the house, shouting for help. Inside, every member of the Moore family and both the Stillinger girls lay dead, each one bludgeoned to death with an axe. The killer hadn't just taken their lives, he'd left behind a scene that would baffle investigators for generations. Curtains had been drawn across every window, mirrors covered with cloth, as if to hide the reflection of what had happened. Clothing draped over victims' faces, a slab of bacon placed strangely on the floor beside the murder weapon, Josiah's own axe. The town's marshal arrived quickly, followed by doctors, reporters, and eventually hundreds of curious townsfolk. Within hours, Villisca's quiet streets were swarming with people. Everyone wanted to see for themselves what horror had unfolded in their peaceful town. Unfortunately, that chaos would destroy much of the evidence. Townspeople filed through the house, tracking footprints, touching objects, and leaving the scene contaminated beyond repair. Even the axe, still slick with blood, was handled before it could be properly collected. The killer had left clues, but by noon, most of them were gone. Authorities tried to piece together what had happened. The theory was chilling. Sometime after midnight, the killer entered the home through an unlocked door or window. He likely waited in the attic or a dark corner until everyone had fallen asleep. Then, moving room by room, he struck. The Moores first, Josiah and Sarah in their bed upstairs, their children next, and finally, the Stillinger sisters in the guest room downstairs. Every blow came from the blunt end of the axe, not the blade. It was personal, violent, overkill. One of the doctors noted that the killer had even gone back after finishing, returning to some of the rooms to strike the victims again, as if to make sure there was no chance anyone could survive. But there was something else, something deeply disturbing. The crime scene had a strange, ritualistic feel. The curtains covered, the windows closed, the food left untouched in the kitchen. That piece of bacon, why? Was it a signature, a symbol, or the deranged whim of a mind lost to darkness? The town was gripped by fear. Doors that had never been locked were now bolted shut every night. Families slept with lamps burning and shotguns by their beds. Villisca wasn't just a town anymore. It was a crime scene. Word of the murder spread far beyond Iowa. Newspapers across the country picked up the story, branding it the Villisca Axe Murders. It became one of the most horrifying crimes in American history, not only because of its brutality, but because it made people realize, even in the safest towns, evil can find its way in. As the investigation began, rumors spread like wildfire. Who could have done something so monstrous? Was it a drifter passing through on the train, a neighbor with a grudge, or someone much closer to home? Josiah Moore had once worked for a man named Frank Jones, a prominent businessman and state senator. The two had fallen out bitterly when Josiah left his company to start his own, taking some of Jones's best customers with him. Small-town gossip hinted that Josiah had also been close to Jones's daughter-in-law, sparking whispers of jealousy and revenge. Many in Villisca believed Frank Jones had the money and motive to kill Josiah and his family, but belief and proof are not the same. Others pointed to a more mysterious figure, a traveling preacher named Reverend George Kelly. Kelly had been in town the night of the murders, attending the same church event as the Moores. He was an odd man, eccentric, known for strange behavior and an unsettling presence. He left town early the next morning, just hours after the murders. Some witnesses claimed he even mentioned the killings before the bodies were discovered, details no one should have known. When police finally questioned Kelly, his story shifted again and again. He even confessed at one point, describing the crime in detail. But then he recanted, claiming insanity and coercion. There was never enough evidence to convict him. The jury couldn't agree, and the case fell apart. Then came another theory, the idea that the Villisca murders weren't isolated at all. Between 1911 and 1914, a string of eerily similar axe murders occurred across the Midwest. Whole families slaughtered in their beds, windows covered, lamps left burning low. Could the Villisca killer have been a transient serial murderer, riding the railways from town to town? Some investigators believed so, pointing to nearly identical patterns in places like Colorado Springs, Kansas, and Illinois. But again, no proof, no name, no justice. Back in Villisca, the house stood silent, its paint peeling, its walls soaked with the memory of that night. The Moore family was laid to rest together in the local cemetery, the Stillinger sisters buried beside them. The town tried to move on, but some wounds never heal. Over the years, people claimed to see strange things at the old Moore house. Lights flickering, doors closing, the faint sound of footsteps or children's laughter echoing through the halls. Paranormal investigators have called it one of the most haunted houses in America. But maybe it isn't ghosts people sense. Maybe it's just the weight of what happened there. A story too heavy to fade. Decades later, the Villisca Axe Murders still remain one of the darkest unsolved crimes in American history.
A puzzle with missing pieces, a nightmare with no ending. But the story doesn't stop there. The investigation would grow stranger, the suspects more twisted, and the theories more chilling with every passing year.
The story is not over yet. See you in part 2, next video.